Hey guys, so welcome to my video. My autoethnography is called Beautiful Culture, as you can see on the screen. So for sure, I wanted to involve something in my autoethnography about Mexican culture and how it's impacted the way I speak and the way I react and approach situations. The book is opening, of course, and I'm going to draw a supermarket. And the supermarket is going to be the setting of the first paragraph or the first big part of the autoethnography, from where my sister and my mom start to argue because my sister's crying over a bag of hot Cheetos. And of course, my mom says no, and unfortunately, my sister doesn't give up and continues to cry. So my mom hits her with a phrase that every single Mexican family or parent has said at least once, which is "Vas a ver cuando lleguemos a la casa." Just you wait till you get home. What this phrase does is that not only will my sister calm down and put away the Cheetos, but also she would be on her best behavior because she doesn't want to get hit with a chancla, which is sandal in English, or get hit with a belt when she gets home. This phrase is part of Mexican culture because many parents will actually buy their children what they ask for. But Mexican parents don't have time for their tantrums and don't want to be embarrassed in public. But that's why the phrase comes up as "Vas a ver cuando lleguemos a la casa," so they can control their child to not ask "a la casa." And they only say that phrase mainly around when they're younger, at their younger age, so they can realize that they shouldn't be making those mistakes when they're older and knowing the consequences, what would happen if they do a tantrum like that again. And I've had so many situations on where my parents have hit me with the chancla or the belt or whatever, but it's made me into a better person now. You can see me trying to draw a card that shows "Vas a ver cuando lleguemos a la casa," the phrase in there and everything, and it's a really fun way to show that how my mom would throw that card to Patrick, which is my sister. So yeah. Now moving on from this picture, the next picture will be describing about a story that my father would tell us whenever we would complain on doing chores. And this was a true story, supposedly, on how he would walk so many miles to get to school every single day in extreme temperatures, and how they were poor and they didn't have half the things we have now, which that part is true. But he would tell us those stories to not nag when we are cleaning, but also to remember how much they sacrificed to get us here. Okay, now moving on from this picture, the next picture I'll be drawing is the house we own in Mexico, where my grandmother is staying at after my grandfather died. Now before my grandfather passed away, he owned a big chunk of land that when he died, he gave every one of his children, which there was 13 of them, a piece of land to build their homes. Unfortunately, most of my uncles sold their land to receive just the money. But once that money was gone, they wanted to sell more land they didn't own. My father didn't know about the situation at the time until he finally called my grandma to see how she was doing. And my grandma told him about the situation. He was so furious, he actually was going to go to Mexico, or thinking of going to Mexico, to fix the situation. But he didn't, because my aunt that lived here told them that she should go to Mexico since my dad was illegal and knew he couldn't come back, and he agreed. Before I continue with this story, some background about my aunt. She has 2 daughters, one that's already in her mid-20s and one in middle school. She decided to leave them because she knew that her older daughter would take care of her younger daughter. And she knew that I was the oldest one in my family and that I wanted to go to college and I wouldn't be able to take care of my siblings like my dad if he would have left. Now, here's the more interesting part. Back to the story. Once she goes to Mexico, she actually fixes the situation and actually realizes that her own brothers treated her as a slave because she was the woman of the household, which is also known as machismo, which is a big part of Mexican culture, and some women are actually okay with that, but my aunt wasn't. So what she did was she kicked all my uncles out of the house to fend for themselves and told my grandmother there's a different way of living, and she actually helped my grandmother take care of herself physically and emotionally, and also fixed her up by finally putting some light makeup on for herself and she cooked and cleaned for herself. And at first, my grandmother thought it was harsh to throw them out so they can fend for themselves, but she now realized that it was a big eye opener and saw how much her own children badly treated her. And now my aunt and grandma actually have a business and are actually want to talk about the poverty in Veracruz, where my grandma's living. There's actually 61% of the people there that are actually in poverty. And I got this information from Ramona Eduardo Ruiz, rambling on Mexicans under development. Now, the next image I am drawing is a medal when I participated in the multiplication competition and how that affected me. I was in 3rd grade, and it was an annual competition we did in elementary school. And it was actually finally here. And of course, the nerdy little kid I was actually excited to participate, but they only allowed 2 students from each 3rd grade class to participate, 1 boy and 1 girl. And I wanted to be in it so badly that I'd do anything. So I went home and I told my mom I wanted to be in the competition, and she said I would have to study and practice every day if I wanted to join. Fortunately, I made the team, and my mother showed me to get rewarded, you need to put some hard work in it. She also would actually never hang up any of our awards, not because she didn't care, but because she didn't want us to be materialistic and think that we were better than everyone else just because we had some awards. So I want to say a paragraph from America Ferrera's book, American Like Me. This is part of her personal essay. So, they oohed and awed at my mother's courageous immigrant story, then wish out loud that my hardworking spirit would rub off on their children. Seeing such a smart and articulate brown girl was like seeing a dog talk. They were easily impressed. Even at home, I walked a fine line between assimilating to American ways enough to make my mom proud, and adapting in ways that would disgrace and shame her. For instance, bringing home straight A report cards was a good thing, but attending late-night co-ed study groups to achieve said A's was shameful and likely to turn me into a drug addict, pregnant high school dropout. This is my favorite paragraph that America Ferrera wrote in her personal essay because she talks about many things Mexican parents say when their children stay out at night to study, such as how her mom says that can turn her into a pregnant high school dropout or a drug addict. I know I can relate to that because my own mother has told me I better not be doing drugs when she lets me go out and study. I also love how she discusses on how non-Latin families are astonished about how hardworking we are and start criticizing their own children and telling them why they can't be more like us. Of course, not all non-Latin families are like that, but moving on to the next picture. Now, this picture is a cuisine that is made in Mexico and very delicious. It is called mole. And I drew this mole not only because I like the dish, but because food is very important in the Mexican culture, just as any other culture. I'm going to say a little phrase from a source I used from Teresa Derrickson from a book called The Puerto American Divide, page 121. My mother kept herself a native in the apartment. She rarely left. We spoke Spanish and ate rice and beans and meats prepared in adobe. I read this phrase because she talks about how her mother doesn't lose that culture and knows that Puerto Rican culture is part of her. And yeah, before I finish this video, I just wanted to say that I've learned a lot from the Mexican culture and how it has impacted my way of living, from the punishments my parents would give me so I can learn a lesson, to the delicious food my mother would make that her mother passed the recipes down to. I just know that I can say I have a healthy relationship with the Mexican culture and the beauty that culture gives to the world from their food, the colors, the music, and that not every culture is the same. So yeah.